because your memory says, well, I got it all. I got this handled. But things start slipping through the cracks. And now is the time when you need to start bringing other people in. And the importance here is that you need to create a systematic way of having a client experience that lives without you involved in it.
Martians landed?
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits?
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer?
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit?
Yes, and?
Your branding here?
Yes, brand.
Your message here?
Yes, and?
A verse about?
Yes.
Your product here?
Yes.
I'm Hirsch Redfin.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
We have a very special guest on the Yes Brand show today. It is, in fact, Dame Lady Jen Du Plessis, and she is a member of the Royal House of Cappadocia and the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen. And she's emerged as a very powerful and charismatic award-winning international speaker. She shares stories of resilience, sorrow, and triumph in business. She's a 4-time #1 best-selling author. And she is also known as the team building and scaling architect. And so we're going to get into a lot of different things, but I couldn't resist doing a little Jerry Lewis. Lady Jen, thank you. Welcome to Yes Brand.
Thank you so much. I've never been introduced with a comic, right? With you being a comedian and an impersonator. I guess, is that the word? I don't know. An impressionist.
Well, that was an impression of Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
It was
I love it.
It was a little, the Jerry Lewis impression only works if you counterbalance it with the serious Jerry Lewis voice.
Oh, yeah, because he can be very serious.
Yeah, it would be very serious. It would say, so Lady Jen, tell us the fun stuff. What's fun? All right. Well, let's start with.
Thank you for having me, by the way.
My pleasure.
I'm so delighted.
My pleasure. It is wonderful to see you. We are recording this around the holiday season, so we both have our kind of, black, cozy cabin type freezing weather thing going on. Well, I want to talk about a lot of things. I want to talk about team building. I want to talk about your books and your speaking and all the things you bring to the business of being you. But I think it would be nice to start with the business of being you, because we talk a lot about branding on the show. How does one build a brand such as yours?
Well, it's a really loaded question, but you know what? For me, the first thing that comes to mind is integrity. That's how I've built my brand. It's not so much the technical piece that maybe you were going to ask the question about, but for me, it's all about integrity. It's making sure that everything that I do is not, you've heard me say this before, it's not FOMO, it's promo, right?
Yeah.
It's not for fear of missing out and doing something that doesn't align with me and doesn't align with my core values, but rather doing something that will promote myself or be in a room where, I'm with like-minded people. And so for me, I think the biggest thing is the integrity piece. And obviously, as for 40 years, I was in the mortgage business. I, transitioned out of that 8 years ago. And I know when I look back on that, that's how I built that brand. And that was, very, very top in the country, that type of thing. And so that's how I built that brand, was in integrity and making sure that when you commit, you commit. And when you say you're going to do something, you doggone better do it. If you say you're going to follow through and follow up, then you better do that as well. So I think for me, that has allowed for people to want to be surrounded by me because they know they can count on me.
Yeah. And that's a very good kind of core element of all of this. The dependability. It sounds kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But but it isn't. But I think sometimes the most obvious things in business are the ones that get overlooked or rushed past because people are more concerned with the image and the idea that they deliver. And you were saying something before the show, which is that to you, a brand is more than just the image you put forth, it's the or the marketing,
Right.
it's the experience that the client has,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Well, so I use an infinity sign to describe this. And I think the reason why, and so I'll go a little technical on this, and you can ask me another question. We'll divert from it if you want. But, I think as entrepreneurs, what we do is, we're chasing the lead. I mean, this is why we do marketing. It's like the lead. So I'd like to just propose one other thought here is I don't say lead ever. I'm always chasing an opportunity because it might be a lead, it might be a referral, it might be speaking on stage, it might be an opportunity to sponsor something, it might be the opportunity to attend something where I'm going to meet that big client, right? So I'm never looking for leads. I'm always looking for opportunities. And so for me, when I think about this infinity sign, right, that I use in business, when most entrepreneurs, they think I got my lead, I put it on my little conveyor belt, and then it gets done, we close business, and then I go back to the front and I look for more leads,
Yeah.
right? And to really scale and grow your business, we need to start thinking in terms of infinity signs. For example, I was just, I told you we just went and looked at a house, right?
Yeah.
And I was in the car with the realtor, and the realtor said, oh, I've worked with a lot of my past clients. And I said, gosh, can I give you some counsel? And she said, sure. I said, when I think past, I don't think PAST, I think PASSED.
Right.
My clients have passed away. We closed business, and now
Right.
they've passed away because we
They've
don't follow
passed.
through with them, right? Because we run to the front of that conveyor belt again. So I call them alumni. And the reason why I call them alumni is because what do alumni do? They're like, you got to go to my school. You got to go this. And they're loyal and they send money, right? They reinvest back into the school. And I want my clients to come back. So this is why the infinity sign, because it's not an end to end, it's a constant. And people are in different parts of that infinity, right? That infinity sign. So if you can imagine an infinity sign, you're looking at it on the left side of it, it's all marketing. It's brand awareness. It's the trigger that, hey, I need a new pair of shoes. And then we start looking, and then the brand awareness, right? And then the decision making. But the moment that you cross over to the right side of it, that threshold is called trust. They've developed trust, and now they want to buy from you for whatever thing, service you have or product. The right side of the infinity sign is where you have the client experience. So it is called CX now, by the way, client experience. No one
Yeah.
says customer service. No, it's
Mm.
the client experience. How do they feel after having worked with you? And how they feel takes you to the half of that right side of the infinity sign that is creating loyalty. And that
Hmm.
loyalty leads right back into triggers for themselves or their friends, right? Or their colleagues, whatever the case may be. So it's really important that we don't just market and close, but that we market and create this beautiful experience. And that is your brand. That is
Yeah.
your brand too. Because if you do all this marketing and it falls flat because someone said, oh, you have to go see her. She's really, really good. And then they get Hirsch who doesn't have his act together, right? They go back to that person and say, I don't know what you saw because I didn't get that.
Right.
So we have to be really good and aware of that brand that we're creating in our sales process or our
Yeah.
fulfillment.
I love that. And I love the infinity concept because
Mhm.
it also circles back, like as you say, it's not even necessarily working with that person again. It could also be that they recommend you to
Oh,
someone
and that's what we hope
and
for. Yeah,
yeah, and they keep that going and that we make them look good. That's what, I think of when,
yes,
I've gotten referrals from mentors of mine. And I'm like, well, all I really want is for them to look good, them to look great
absolutely.
because they're going out on a limb.
Len,
They have the big reputation and they're referring me, and I have to make sure that they look good. I have to live up to the recommendation, which I love that inspiration to really come through and shine, and do it for a reason that isn't doesn't really feel like it's just about us.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is. I know it isn't. I'll rephrase that. I know it isn't, about us. And this is why I help people so much with the scaling piece of it, because so many entrepreneurs will say, well, no one can do it like me. And I'm going, well, God, I hope not. Because once you get to a threshold of, you can handle one or two clients, maybe five, whatever your number is, right? You can
Yeah.
handle them from end to end. But at some point, the threshold's too high and things start falling through the cracks, and you aren't as good as you believe you are. Right? Because your memory says, well, I got it all. I got this handled. But things start slipping through the cracks. And now is the time when you need to start bringing other people in. And the importance here is that you need to create a systematic way of having a client experience that lives without you involved in it. Right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
You
it
need to have
does.
that experience, because people don't come to you. I hate this is okay, it's a secret. People don't come to you for you. They come to you because of how you made them feel. And that only comes from your client experience and your system and process. And when you've got it down, whether individually or as you're growing a team, and when you have that down, they will refer because of the experience. So you just have to duplicate the experience. Look at Starbucks. We all go to Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever it is, right? You go there because of the experience. Someone created a systematic experience that people go back at time and time again, time
Yeah.
and time again.
Yeah, and this is so important for service providers. There are so many of us that provide a service. We were just talking about it, how personal, how special. And then on the flip side of that scenario is the fact that the client, let's say in my field where I'm doing personal branding, my belief is that they each deserve an incomparable personal brand. And so I'm I'm developing their uniqueness, right? So you've got me doing my unique thing, them doing
Yeah,
their unique thing, and then we face that scale question. How do
yeah,
we scale when we're doing something so, ostensibly singular? And it's just like you say, it's not like I'm looking to train an army of people who are personal brand builders like me. But if I can canonize that experience, if
yeah,
I can, it's the experience, not even necessarily the method, right?
yeah,
They
yeah.
now talk a little bit, if you would, about teams and how that works.
Yeah, well, it kind of is the method, right? A little bit, but the whole idea is that the method creates the experience, right? The
Yeah.
method creates the experience, and this is why we're calling it client experience, right? So yeah, in my mentorship and what I do with coaching is, so we'll just break this out. You've heard me say this before, is stop working in and on your business and start living above and beyond your business. So
Hmm.
if we look at the in and the on and the above and the beyond, there's a couple of factors in here. So, as you're listening to this, I want you to start taking notes because I'm going to start going fast on this. In the in, that's the me phase. The only person you worry about is yourself. You're the one who is last buck. The buck stops here. You're the marketer. You're the social media. You're the trash taker outer, right? You're everything, right? You get yourself a cup of coffee. It's
Yeah.
everything. It's the me phase. When we work on our business, that's the phase where we're working on the methods. Okay, the methods, because this is now where you're saying, well, if I'm going to entertain bringing someone on, I need to create some systems in everything I do for prospects, for marketing, for social media, for the fulfillment piece. What happens after we close business together? What do I do for my referral partners? What do I do for my vendors? Everything has, and my alumni, right? What is the process that I have for all of these things so that when someone comes in, we can execute on it? Because if you don't do it, this is where people oscillate back and forth between in and on. It's like I tried it and then I let them go because they were horrible. Well, no, you probably weren't ready. You didn't have a system. And as a result, you were enabling them because they couldn't do anything on their own. They always had to come to you and go, what happens next? Now, how do I do this? What do I do here? And you go, oh, just forget it. I'll do it myself because you don't have a system for them to follow. Right? Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
So when
Yeah.
we make that leap, right, I have a program called Leap, that it's that leap of faith that you take, right?
Yeah.
When you make that leap into the above, now what you're doing is you are empowering your team members, not enabling. You're empowering them. And you're empowering them through three different ways. It's your vision, your values, and your voice. That's how you empower people. They need to know what the vision is for your business. Do you know your vision? I hope so. But if you don't know your vision, figure it out. But then you've got to share it with your team. And your
Yeah.
vision needs to be so large that it includes everybody who's going to be on your team so that they're on board with you.
Yeah.
Then your voice, I mean, your values. I have personal values, but they aren't always the same as my business. Now, integrity is one of my personal core values, and it's a core value of my practice. But not always are they the same. So, what are your core values of your business? Your non negotiables, right? The things that you won't tolerate. Like if you don't like, you say, I can't stand when people aren't honest, and honesty is a core value. Is
Yeah.
that making sense? Right. So my own hair in my own mouth. So, see, I'm fun to be interviewed because I'm not going to be like, can you stop the video?
Can you
Because I
cut?
have hair in
Can
my
you
mouth.
cut and we'll edit out
No, I
the
don't
hair
even
that
want
I'm
you
taking out of
to.
my mouth?
No, it's okay. I don't care. I never do. So when it comes to the values, you got to determine your business values, but then you have to relay that to your team. And then the last piece of that is the voice, right? What is your voice? Are you humorous? Are you formal? Do you use lots of emojis? I'm a November baby, so I'm an emoji girl. I love emojis. But do you use emojis? How do you respond? Are you quick and short? If we look at the disc profile, are you just like, yep, nope? Or do you like blah, dee, 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 right? So what is your way of communicating? And when your team learns that way just by osmosis, or are you educating or seeing how you respond and how you talk? When they start learning that, they start enabling and they can make decisions without you there. And that's when you can go beyond your business, whether it's sleeping in, starting another business, going back to the me phase, right? Putting a new spin on your business and going back to the me phase, whatever your beyond is. And that's why I can't define success for anybody, because it's so different for every one of us. And I know I've
Yeah.
shared a lot of that. There's a lot of stuff in there, but that's how you start scaling your team. Number one is get those systems in place so you can do that.
Yeah. And I was thinking when you were talking about communicating your vision. So I created this quiz for clients, prospective clients, and so forth to get a handle on where they're at with their personal brand. And it breaks down into three things: clarity, mission, and thought leadership. And what's funny is, a lot of people took this quiz over the holiday weekend, and so many came back with 70% clarity, 100% clarity, and they have, or at least they believe they do, they have
Yeah.
tremendous clarity. Now, when it came to thought leadership, was a little less, and mission even less.
Oh,
So the mission part is, where are you taking your message? What are you doing to disseminate your message and so forth? And naturally it is harder, but it's funny because I thought of it as you spoke, where it's like, yeah, they may have a really clear vision of what they want to do or where they want it to go, but they're struggling when it comes to communicating it or sharing it. And probably that's also within their organization, where
yeah.
that how do you take something and get it out to the people who need to hear it? Because to your point, the integrity, consistency, all those other things have to translate with that vision. They have to travel with that
Yeah.
vision, right?
I think that's a great word to use, travel with it, because it is you. I mean, you are your
Yeah.
brand all the time. It's you incorporated, right? So you're just constantly being that. But if you're going to have a team that goes out, they need to be just like you. And that's why
Yeah.
you can go, I'm going to use Starbucks. You go into Starbucks, they say, what can we get started? That's
Right, right.
voice. When you go to McDonald's, they say, can I take your order? That's voice.
Hmm.
When you go to Chick-fil-A and you say thank you, they say my pleasure. That's voice. So if the big guys are doing it, why aren't you?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, I've said that too, which is that the big corporations strive to be human. And
Mhm.
so they want to create a human persona. They do it on Twitter. They do it everywhere. And some do it really, really well.
Mhm.
But we are human beings and individuals, and we have this opportunity to really create a genuine one for ourselves. And it's like, why wouldn't you seize that beautiful opportunity
I
to
know.
to
I know.
really communicate authentically as a person, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and that is where that, like you said, that disconnect comes from, is the best way for me to explain this. My husband used to work with me, and I would say to him, I need this report. And yeah, 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 whatever, right? And then we'd have a meeting and we're going over the report with the data I have, which did not include his report, right? So I have this data and I'm going, so this and this and this. And he goes, hold on, hold on, hold on. You don't have so and so there and this thing and that thing. And I go, well, wait a minute. If you did the report, then I would be able to disseminate this information, more properly. And so the same thing holds true with the vision and the values and the voice. If you're just going to live in your own bubble of, this is what I want, and I want everybody, it's sort of, a friend of mine says, expectations without agreement creates resentment. Right?
Mhm.
Expectations without agreement create resentment. So if you're expecting people to respond to emails like you do, to speak like you do, to talk on your behalf, to, take care of a customer service issue, right? Any of those types of things, you have to communicate that to them and you have to get agreement, meaning you have to train them, you have to educate them, you have to have them have, or not have them, but let them follow you, let them shadow you and dedicate time to that rather than, well, I hired them because they've got all these skills, so they should just know how to be me. No, they know the mechanics, but they don't know the mindset.
Yeah.
And that's where we fail so horribly as entrepreneurs.
Well, we were joking about the Jerry Lewis thing, but
Yeah.
that's really getting an impression of someone and mimicking is is an instinct that we have.
Mhm.
When there's always that sibling or friend, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's the
Yeah.
other, but who mimics what we're
Yeah.
doing and they're just copying us as we say it, and it's infuriating. It drives us crazy. Well,
It drives us crazy.
that's
Well, that's
mimicry,
that's
but
mimicry.
that's not systemization or protocol or anything like that. But if you look at
Yeah.
really great impressionists, really great, people who do true
Yeah.
characterizations of people, they're getting everything down as a science.
Yeah.
The tone of the voice, the way they move their eyes, the way they move their hands, the gestures. That's what we need when we're scaling, is that level of
Mimicry.
detail
Yeah.
so that the mimicry becomes truly an impression, a copy,
Yeah.
a codification of of our persona
Yeah.
and our values and all that. I want
Well,
to talk a little. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to say one quick thing too is you've made it when you get a phone call from someone and it's a lead. Let's just say it's a lead, and you call and you go, "Hi, I'm just calling you back." They go, "Hey, don't worry about it. I already talked to her. She took care of it. Everything's good. We're already moving forward on everything." By the way, it's like talking to you.
Yeah, that's right. That's a wonderful experience to have.
Hmm.
So I wanted to touch a little bit on the books,
Yeah.
because you love to write. Clearly, you've had 4 books. You have another book in the works,
I
or
have
what's
another
the?
book in the works. Yeah, I've been in 22 books total. I do a lot
Right.
of collaborative books. And by the way, I think that's a fantastic way to expand your brand too. But so I've been in a lot of books. Yeah, I've got four books out now. We're working on a fifth that will be coming out hopefully, sometime in 2025. I said it was going to come out in 2024, but I kind of set back and said, I'm a little tired of writing right now.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of articles recently, and I thought, I need some freshness for myself before I start going to the next level. And I think that I'm glad I did, because this time last year, what I would have written about is not what I would write about now. And I don't want to have to always do a book. right?
Yeah.
In order to get my thoughts out there. So a few things have changed and shifted, and I've grown a little more. And so now those pieces will still be in the book, but I think I'll expand on them. So, I think it's worth waiting. Anything good is worth waiting for,
Can you
right?
tell us a little bit about what it's going to be
Oh
about?
yeah, well, it's gonna be a fiction book, and it's actually, oh gosh, when you're a publisher, you should know these words, and maybe you can help me. It's a story, but what do you call the story?
Narrative
No,
or
not a narrative. It's a story that you'll learn something from.
oh,
So
a parable?
there we go, a parable. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. It's a parable. I own part of a vineyard, and I decided that this book would be that a man owns a vineyard, and he is working himself, all night, and has bloody hands and whatever, because he's doing all the work
Yeah.
like we do as solopreneurs. And then he meets the woman down the road who happens to be Jen, right? He meets me down the road, but I won't use my name. Meets me down the road, and I've got this big vineyard that's just humming right along, and it's doing great, and it has this great reputation and everything. And he learns through his communication back and forth, and the story that goes back and forth between these two, how to let go so he can grow.
Oh, very nice. I love it.
Yeah, so it'll be about business. That'll be about
Yeah.
business. It'll be a parable of learning and tips and secrets and resources and whatnot. Mhm.
But it's also about life. I didn't read nonfiction until maybe, 6, 7 years ago. I wasn't really that interested. I wasn't interested in
Right.
how-to books or business books or
Yeah.
even biographies of or autobiographies of, business people. But I have gradually become really just absorbed in it, really fascinated. My dog got in here somehow. Really fascinated by it. And now I just love that stuff. But I love the idea of getting into a kind of a fictional storytelling parable because I feel like people really relate to that. That's going to bring people so much closer
Yeah.
to
And I
the
think that
lesson.
yeah, our attention span isn't as good as it used to be. I know I still won't do audiobooks. I'll occasionally do them, but I find when I'm listening to an audiobook that I end up buying the book because I need to make marks in the book and dog ears and take notes and stuff.
Yeah.
So I end up buying it anyway. So it's like, just gonna buy it. But I think with the parables, I think that people are interested. We know this on social media. People want video stories. They want stories about people and their lives. And oh my
I'm
God,
sorry. See, this is what
she is.
happened. This is Mickey. Mickey's the new dog. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is what we're talking about. This is what happens.
Yeah, this is what
My
happens.
daughter was supposed to be watching them, but
Hi,
they
Mickey.
got loose, and now Mickey's
Oh,
here. And if I let him just on the ground, he's going to be biting my leg.
biting you. So you just
So
hold him. It's perfect. I used to do that with my pup too, my Maltese. But yeah, I think parables are kind of the new thing. My most recent book is called Tell Me I Can't, and it's a fiction book. It was written for Hallmark and for Lifestyle or Lifetime movies.
yeah,
And we actually got it accepted to be written, for them or whatever they call that, thing, a, a book, and where a book
yeah,
goes to a movie, yeah, whatever
an
it's called, script.
adaptation. You're gonna have to keep me around,
Because
for
I don't have
as
any,
you
I don't
speak
know
to
these
people.
words
Yeah, an
in all the
adaptation.
public. Yeah. And but we wrote that book, that story. If you've ever watched Hallmark and stuff, somebody
Yeah,
goes somewhere and they have a little fight and then they fall in love, and so that's all it does. The new book is not going to be about that, but
right.
that particular book, Tell Me I Can't, was my life story, right? I was always told, I wasn't going to be worthy. I was going to be this, that, and the other, that my parents
Right.
had said. And because of that, I said, well, wait a minute, I'm going to do a book called Tell Me I Can't. Not Don't Tell Me I Can't. That's confrontational, but rather go ahead. Tell
Yeah.
me. Tell me I
Yeah.
can't. Watch what I do. So as you go through the book, the character is doubting herself and not sure she can do it. But then she eventually starts going, wait a minute, I've got this. I'm really good at this. Right. And it was my self discovery over many years, of going through. So it still is a learning book, really pegged toward women. That particular book, but this next one will be, more meat and potatoes about business, about
Hmm.
actual application of business, and not so much mindset. There'll be a little bit of that, of course, but Yeah.
Well, I would love to have you come on the Truth Tastes Funny podcast, my other podcast, and just kind of tell your story
Yeah.
because there's so much to tell and learn, and we've only been focusing on a small part of,
Mhm.
business. And but thank you so much for coming on because I feel like there's so much value in all that you share. And we'll have links to the books and links to everything else in the show notes. But to give you the last word, would you like to share a piece of advice
Yep.
for entrepreneurs that are and small business owners that are kind of in that in phase? They're in that me phase where they maybe feel like they're doing everything.
Yeah. Well, I have a quote that I always end with, so I'm going to use that. And then if I need to change it as I'm saying it, I will make an adjustment. But the quote that I always say is, we flatter those we scarcely know. We please the fleeting guests, but we deal many a thoughtless blow to those we love the best, including ourselves. We are more good to our business than we are to ourselves. We are better at our business than we are in our personal lives. There's so much divorce and so much anger and everything. So we're always, pleasing everybody else and then bitter with ourselves and bitter with our families. And that is not good for our business. And that is what puts layers of issues on so that it's not can't, that we don't feel comfortable taking that step to move from the in and the on, to go to the on, because it's just another layer of friction, these constant layers that we have in our lives. And so I just encourage you to be as good to yourself as you are to that crazy business that you have, right?
Yeah.
And in the process of being good to the business as well, write everything down that you do. Prepare yourself, prepare yourself before you it's like this. We all have cell phones, and when we have 17% on it, we are running around looking for, something like we used to see everybody looking for a drag on a cigarette, right? You got a cigarette, you got a light, we got right.
Yeah.
And we're running around going, do you have any juice? Do you have anything I can plug in? I'm at 17%. Oh my God, I'm at 17%, right? But we don't realize that we're doing that in business. When you get down to 2% and now you decide you need to hire someone, it's too late. Watch where your battery level's going. Don't wait till it's too late and then say, forget it, I'll just have to do it on my own, because you're keeping yourself from success. You're keeping yourself from leveling up and going to your beyond.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then
subscribe and leave a
yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.